what I've learned is more important for us, at least, is hiring people who are relentless. Because even if they're not smarter than you could hopefully train them to know what they need to know if they're willing to tear down and rebuild as many times as it takes. When all of those things are free, your transportation, your food, your computer, your whatever, let's say the average American household might be saving 25 grand a year. That's a lot of cash in your pocket. Where are you going to spend it? I'm hoping that maybe you choose to spend that on our future platforms, but just put it in your pocket.
I'm joined with Josh Cliffords, the founder and CEO of FreeWater, the world's first free beverage company. First of all, Josh, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Second of all, out of this lovely building here in Austin, you're one of the few people, probably the only person, but definitely the biggest one, where I heard about your idea, what you guys are doing at FreeWater, and it actually struck me as, wow, that's a good idea, versus a lot of the pie in the sky ideas for the most part that you hear entrepreneurs have. So for those people who don't know what FreeWater is, what the business model behind it is, tell us a little bit about how it works.
Yeah, so FreeWater is the world's first free beverage company. We do paper cartons and aluminum bottles at the moment of natural spring water. And it's free because the packaging is the ad space. But it's a new type of media and e-commerce platform that uses QR codes to connect to anything on the internet. And so today we just earn money off the physical packaging. In the future, we've created a half dozen different ways where we could earn up to $1,000 per beverage. And most importantly, 10 cents of every FreeWater is donated to charity to fight the global water crisis. Our goal with FreeWater is to get 10% of Americans to save money, drink 1 bottle a day. The average American drinks 3 to 6 that they pay for. And we'll be donating more than $1 billion a year. And this media and e-commerce platform will work for every type of product. So just the first product of our future free supermarkets.
It's an amazing system when you look at it, because I'm trying to think of the most similar things that use this model in the past.
Porn, Google, YouTube, but in the physical world, we've had free newspapers and magazines since the 80s.
Yeah, and for me personally, coming from the gaming space, a lot of that is free gaming, and then you have all the add-ons. So I think what would be most interesting to lay out the land of this podcast is to start out with the origin story about you as the entrepreneur, because that's who I want to tell this story to. How, first of all, what was your background before all of this? And then how did you eventually come to start something so great?
My background was none of this. And so in my early mid-20s, I owned a gym for athletes in LA, sold the business, bought an RV, and traveled around America for a year and a half. And ran out of gas money, sold the RV, went to South America for a while, and decided I wanted to get paid to take people on adventures like a Bear Grylls. So I enlisted in the Army to go from civilian to Green Beret, the hardest job in the Army that I could apply for. And then I hurt my back and neck jumping out of an airplane, and then I broke my leg at the beginning of Special Forces training. So they medically retired me, and I got out. It was almost my 30th birthday. I was like, for my 30th birthday, I want to do a trip around the world. And my goal is 100 countries in 4 years. And I was about a quarter of the way done with it. I was in Rome for 5 minutes, and I was blown away by the sad story of 2 Nigerian refugees. And their story was so sad, I decided to cancel the trip around the world and start a nonprofit organization in Eastern Europe called Save the Refugees. And in a year and a half, we helped more than 10,000 people. And speaking with those people, represented from more than 25 different countries and 2 continents, we realized an ongoing theme. A quarter of them left their country because they didn't have water or food. And then that kind of took me down this whole rabbit hole of what's the true cost to end the global water crisis or global famine? It must be huge, because why hasn't anyone done it? And if you look at the UN's figures, global water crisis alone is hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. But that's when you spend money like the UN, like $10,000 for a hammer, $1,000 for a nail. But then when you calculate an actual cost, you're looking at 5 to 10 billion. That's it. So why hadn't it been solved? It bothered me. And then I realized no one wants to solve these things because it's a publicly traded commodity. And bottled water has the highest markup of every product in America, 2,000 times the price they pay.
Wow.
And
so what is that if you were to buy just a regular plastic bottle of water?
If you buy a regular bottle of water for $1, you spend 2,000 times the price, which would be the equivalent of spending $2 million on an iPhone, or $5,000 for a slice of pizza.
So what's the cost of goods then to produce that, fill it with water?
If it's in a plastic bottle, a few cents at best. But again, the water is what they get for practically nothing. And so the goal with FreeWater, get 10% of Americans to save money.
Wow.
And then you just one product at a time.
Yeah, so I'm curious about your personal transition to the nonprofits to then pursuing this company, because it sounds like you were more just the adventure type, not so much the MBA type or looking up how to start businesses, at least I don't know. How did you make that transition to seriously start implementing something?
I'm that person who never paid attention in school. And so I never paid attention in school, and started from the scratch of scratch. When I started working on these free plus charity endeavors, actually started with free taxi for the first 11 months, and I made the pivot to free groceries. We'll still do free transportation later on, and the FreeWater or free food business models, the free taxi and free flights business model dumbed down 99%. And I started from below scratch at 32 when I started this journey. I didn't even know how to type. So I wrote my first Word document at 32.
That's crazy.
In those days, doing a PowerPoint was like Python or JavaScript for me, and then just failed a lot of times. And eventually, if you get told no 1,000 times, but you fix all of those reasons why they said no, people start running out of reasons why they say no.
That's a great way of looking at that. I love that so much, because it's true. And the curious thing for me is, what was that initial moment, whether it was a moment or whether it was a small buildup of, I'm kind of having this idea. First, for the taxis, when was that moment of, what if I made this thing free? And then what was the moment for water that you
on the trip around the world, I realized I hate taxi drivers. Hopefully no taxi drivers get upset if they listen to this. But basically, you're in another country. The moment they find out you're not from around there, they hit the tariff button on the meter and you pay, 3, 5, 10 times the price. And it didn't matter where I went, Hong Kong, London, you could be anywhere. Egypt, I got a horrible price. So I started taking Uber wherever I could. Uber at that time just started scaling to certain countries. And then I was on my way to the biggest music festival in Hungary called Sziget. They call it the Burning Man of Eastern Europe. And my Uber driver pulled over and tried to rob me with a knife. And then when I got out of that situation, I was furious. And I walked the last mile or two to the music festival. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but screw taxis and Ubers. I'm going to put them all out of business by opening the world's first free taxi company called Free Taxi. And Elon Musk will create the autonomous cars. I'll just create somehow an advertising platform to pay for it. So while traveling the world, I started working on it a few hours a day and solved it right away, but then realized free wasn't good enough, because someone, Google, Uber, Tesla, anyone could just easily duplicate that. So looking at their margins, I realized you have to go where people aren't willing to go, have to figure out a way to earn a profit while distributing negatively priced goods and services. And then that's how that was born. And so I was working on that. And then when I met those refugees, kind of put that on the free taxi on the back burner while I did the nonprofit work. And I was still so mad at the taxis. So when I heard about all these people's struggles, like, yeah, I'll do free water, I'll do free food, I'll do free clothing, free medicine after taxis. And then I was in America, even though I was living in Europe. I was making a man on the street commercial in different cities across the country, New York City, Los Angeles, you name it. That annoying guy with the microphone, like, would you take a ride in a free Uber? And the video camera guy, he needed water. We're in Times Square. He's like, hey, you're working me to death. Can you please buy me a bottle of water? And then go into 7-Eleven and I see a box of this brand of boxed water called Boxed Water is Better.
Oh yeah.
And I was staring at the box and I'm like, what an ugly logo. Like, you could print anything on the packaging. Why would that be your logo? And then I was staring at the box and I remembered the missing milk people in the milk cartons. And so I was like, wait a minute, we've had the ability to print photo quality images on packaging for 70 years. But now everybody has a computer in their pocket with a built-in QR code scanner, NFC chip reader. You could bring any ad to life. Then I started remembering the stories from the refugees. And I didn't know what to do because we're on the way with free taxi. And so I went home, told my mom. She was like, no one's going to give you a car company. You're not famous. We're not rich. You're no Elon Musk. No one's going to give you a car company right out of the gate. But she was like, if you solve something else that's more achievable, like what about free food? Then they'll listen to you about free taxis, free electricity, free pharmaceuticals, anything else. So she was like, how many lives would you save if you made transportation free for everyone? And, I had a number for autonomous transportation. It was just taken from Musk, but she was like, how many lives would you save if you made water, food, and medicine free for everyone around the world? Did some research, realized it would be 50, 60 million lives a year. So pivoted.
Wow.
And here we are.
Wow. So it started with a knife and then a not so fun night. And then it pivoted with a conversation with moms, and moms are never wrong. And then you come up with the idea for FreeWater. So at that point, I'm assuming you've been learning more by this point. You've kind of understood where you need to go, what to do next. What were those next steps like where you had that conversation and you were like, okay, now the objective is water. What did you do first? Did you already have people in place?
No, of course not. I mainly failed all the time the first years. No one would listen to me. I was that crazy guy. Like, you can't make things free, let alone free and donate to charity. So the first step was I needed to make a commercial of actually showing people future uses with packaging and a phone and augmented reality that don't exist. Because it's one thing to explain it to someone. It's better if you could physically give it to them and show them, but if you can't do that, a commercial is kind of that in-between step. So I'd produced a commercial, I applied to Y Combinator. They had said no. I tried to launch in Europe, but failed. And so even though Y Combinator had said no, I'd given them that commercial on a private link, and then all of a sudden it had thousands and thousands of views. So somebody shared it, and it was all over the internet. And then I was like, holy shit, like I need to hurry up. So then I moved back to America and started working on it.
Wow. So you have that video, ended up taking off, getting shared. Once you had that, what was your next step? Because there's, so many moving parts to this.
I mean, I moved to the Bay Area. I was living in Mountain View, bouncing house to house, slept in my car for a while, showering at the Y. What I realized was I invented some next level stuff. I knew I was in the right. What Silicon Valley did for me was it proved that I was moving in the right direction. I knew that because I saw what every other startup was working on, and no one was working on anything remotely similar. Everyone else was working on the Facebook or Uber of something.
Right.
And this is a completely different model.
Yeah.
And so, but then I realized everything I had invented in Europe was made for European people who are in better shape, and mainly pedestrians. But I was living in these houses in the Bay Area with a lot of overweight, lazy coder roommates, and seeing them order everything direct to their doorstep, from apples to bananas, things that I actually like to physically buy because I don't want to get the apples delivered to my house because I don't want to get a crappy one. I like to see them. But then I realized I had to create a way to get the product to Americans for free, which Amazon hasn't been able to do. So it almost like broke me mentally, but it was the hardest thing I ever invented. I was like, how can we create a way in the future to give consumers free local delivery, do it for a fraction of the price that Amazon could do it, but pay our future delivery drivers 5 times the Amazon or Uber salary? And then I realized, free products, negatively priced products enable new ways to manufacture and distribute that gets rid of 95% of the future supply chain. So it's easily possible.
So what did you do first? Get advertisers to buy in on this, or start doing the actual product? And
I failed the way most founders fail. 999 out of 1,000 startup founders, we want to raise money and then launch, which is the perfect setting way to do it. So the first 9 months I failed at trying to raise money. And then I realized I have to figure out how to get traction with no money. and then just went to work. Because when you're trying to raise money, it wastes a bunch of your time. And
Sure.
if you don't have a big team, you can't get other things done.
Right. So that traction, that proof of concept, did you want to build, say, an audience first before you went to an investor? Or did you have some ideas of maybe we don't need an investor?
In a perfect world, I wanted to have the money to get into manufacturing, to cut our costs and go straight to the ad agency relationship. So two things we still don't have: our own manufacturing facility and big ad agencies in our back pocket. So the goal was to cut through that, obviously start at the finish line. It didn't work. I made every mistake possible. Bay Area got super expensive. And so my wife and I moved to Austin by chance a couple months before the pandemic had started. Then the pandemic started, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't really get anything rolling. But the first week or so of the pandemic, before anyone really knew what it was, when people were waiting in long lines to get to the supermarket, I was distributing thousands of free beers where I'd cut the labels off, made my own ghetto labels to collect valuable data, feedback, you name it. And people were happy to drink a warm beer while they waited in line because they didn't even know if there would be any groceries left in the supermarket. And then started getting some data and refining it, and eventually found product market fit.
So along that journey, I'm intrigued by your learning process. It sounds like there's no substitute for experience in your case. But were there any mentors, any books or resources that you drew on? I know a lot of this is so brand new.
I've never read a book before. So now I know I have really bad dyslexia. But in my whole life, the only time I've ever completed a book was in school, junior high, whatever, when the whole class read out loud.
Wow. Okay.
But YouTube, I could draw from inspiration from other people who have built epic things, but not really. So basically, it was a start from scratch in every way.
Yeah, but sometimes that's the only way to learn when you're doing something so new. Sometimes it's nice if you can draw on similar things, that whether it's similar business models, similar techniques that people have done in the past. But
it was, I went to a bunch of pitch events. I started from scratch. Took some of the feedback, some of it was valuable, some of it was dog crap.
Right.
But in those early days, I'd win a pitch event, but they're like, how many prototypes have you given out? 0. How many ad agencies have you talked to? 0. How many LOIs for distribution points do you have? 0. Do you have anything other than that commercial you made? I'm like, no. So I had to go get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, now,
piece by piece.
Yeah, one thing at a time. And one of the interesting things is how popular this has gotten on social media, TikTok in particular, where I believe the top video has over 33 million views. And it seems to strike a real chord. Is that planned? Do you have an idea of why such a strong response is there? Is it for maybe the global implications of this, or is it just the person's reaction?
Our company is all about the mission and the why. And it's important if people believe in what you believe. And usually when someone gets handed a free water, the first thing they say is, this should be free anyways. And so when people hear of a company that's trying to make all groceries free, eco-friendly, and charitable, no one really argues with that. Maybe someone could say, okay, I believe in this, I just don't think it's possible. No big deal. But so because everybody believes in the mission, it's really powerful. If you get a free water from us, you're sold for the rest of your life. You want free anything, free pizza, free puppies, free Ubers, free water. But if you see a video of somebody getting a free water, you're equally as sold. And #FreeWater received roughly 200 million impressions last year alone. All organically. And so this year, one of the many goals is, let's see if we could try to get that to 1 billion.
Well, it can be done. And I think having TikTok and the shorts are perfectly engineered for that kind of interaction. I don't think, and maybe you could speak differently on this, an Instagram post or a full-length YouTube video would just hit the same with the way that TikTok and
It's
shorts
short,
and things.
but Instagram has Reels now, and so
Right.
we download our most popular videos and repost them on Shorts and Reels, and a lot of videos that do well on TikTok's where we do the experimental stuff. Post up to 20 videos a day sometimes.
Wow.
If they suck, I delete them. Whatever works and looks promising, we take that and then we replay it on Shorts or Instagram Reels. And so, we've got videos on Instagram that have as many as 8 or 10 million impressions too.
Mm-hmm. But them being Reels is interesting to me.
Not traditional posts.
Yeah.
Traditional posts, we got next to zero value out of it.
Yeah. So it's real interesting to see how popular this is over Reels and just what businesses and entrepreneurs can do with this, I don't want to say new way of showing content, but the now popular way. And I think...
So you should try to do things for free, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent money in the early days, like $9,000 on YouTube ads, and got us absolutely zero. And so after failing in the traditional way, if you call that traditional, I don't know what would be traditional, but it's just been a blessing. And we've got roughly 930 followers across all platforms right now. Got most of them last year. Get into the multi-millions soon.
Yeah. And what I like that you said that was interesting to me is how much you experiment with putting out a massive amount of content, taking what works, and then putting those across other platforms. When did that system, strategy, way of doing things in terms of content really pick up? Did you start hiring somebody for social media?
No, I do it all myself.
Plan? Or you started with
I
yourself?
do the Instagram. A few of us create the content together, giving out the waters. Other team members run the other platforms. When I did the refugee nonprofit, I was really raw. And if somebody donated $100, I'd call them and be, how do you want the $100 to be spent? And most people would say, whatever you think is best. But some people would be like, can you get a family in the camp, and can you get the children a bunch of stuff? So what I'd do is when the money was landed in the account, I would go and live stream with them, let them meet the family, let them talk to them, even with an interpreter, let them see their money go to where it was. And I had dedicated myself, for every dollar donated, I'd match with 1 or 2 of my own. And so they would see it, their money in work in real time. And that worked well. And so with TikTok, it all started, a UT student was like, hey, I want to be your TikTok intern. It's like, what does that mean? She's like, I want to post a few videos for you, see what happens. So she posted 3 videos and then quit. But one of the videos, her trying to pitch our product, it was not as good of a pitch as I could do, and it got 50,000 views in a day. And that drove more traffic to our website than spending nearly $10,000 on Google and YouTube. And I was like, wait a minute, we're already giving away free water. Now I just like the refugees, if I could get some of those interactions on camera, maybe the way they respond to getting something free that donates to charity is the answer. Very next day, 100,000 view video. And then just pretty much dove all in. Because as a founder, I think your job is to, as any entrepreneur, to be really flexible on the or really strict on the long-term vision, but extremely flexible and neutral on how you get there. In my early days, I was strict on the vision and strict how I got there. Now I remind myself every day to be flexible on how you get there. So once TikTok started scoring in major ways, it seemed like that was the fastest way to A to B. So pretty much dove into that.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most powerful things that I started learning. And a while ago, I had Gordon Daugherty here said something along the same lines. And I heard this from Jocko Willink, and I applied it, and it was game-changing, which is exactly what you said, which is to be focused and not quit on the strategy, but be prepared to pivot on the tactics and the way of getting there. And something that I found that was super useful is setting that strategy for the people that I hire and say, this is the goal, this is what victory means, but come up with a plan and find out what way you think is best to do this. And I came to find out that that's really how you can take advantage of that piece of advice that you should hire people smarter than you. It works if they understand your same vision and you just give them the freedom to, like you said, find out the micro decisions on their own and be flexible and be willing to adapt.
I think it's obviously a good plan to find people that are smarter than you, but what I've learned is more important for us, at least, is hiring people who are relentless. Because even if they're not smarter than you, you could hopefully train them to know what they need to know if they're willing to tear down and rebuild as many times as it takes. And so I find, regardless of how brilliant someone is, most people are willing to try something a couple times. Like, hey, I revamped this pitch deck or this website. And then you're like, okay, it's not up to the standard, and they're willing to make another draft. But most people will quit after the third or fourth iteration. And that leads to what I found. And so I think people, especially with software products, you take for granted how many versions Amazon's website has had. When I was a kid, I saw Amazon version 1.0. It was like, looked like Craigslist. Now for Amazon, we've seen today, it might be version 1000 for all we know. Even Craigslist is probably on crazy number, even though they have no photos for Craigslist other than the users. But so it's really difficult to find people who are willing to tear down and rebuild as many times as it takes. And so I really, before onboarding someone, try to have like a deep conversation with them and make sure that they understand what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you definitely have that grit, without a doubt, of being able to fail forward, get feedback so often that, like you said in the beginning, you inevitably succeed when you find out the reason why something works. You take care of that reason until there's nothing left to deal with.
I look at a startup like a sunken pirate ship. Like, it's got a bunch of holes in it. Maybe there's some buried treasure in there, maybe not.
Maybe.
So it's like you go down there and just everywhere you look is a hole. So you just start like spackling and fixing all the holes. If you fix enough of them, eventually you start to kind of rise up and then set sail. So we're setting sail, but there's still a lot of holes everywhere. And every day you're just fixing them. And so just plug each hole, one day at a time, as many as you can.
I'd be curious to know what your day-to-day looks like plugging those holes. What's like your average day as founder or CEO? What kind of things are you dealing with? Fires you might be putting out?
I mean, at this point, just so many things. We're finishing up the build on the world's first free vending machine prototype. If we hurry, we'll have it on display at South by. I won't put it on display if the software's buggy at all. But there's a lot that goes into that. And so there's the software end, and there's a build and working with the dev team and so on and so forth. And then day-to-day business of everything that's going on. And for me, the biggest struggle is properly communicating and managing a group of 17 people. Not everybody's physically here, and ideally I want to double the workforce in a short period of time. And so, all that stuff, spend a few hours a day on taking care of the TikTok, try to mix in a live stream if I can, just because a lot of executives come into that live stream.
Interesting.
They'll be like, hey, I'm an executive at this company. Why should we help you? And I'll tell them. And you could tell if it's like some high school kid or a real player by the questions they ask.
Sure.
And so, it's been really phenomenal. It's just a lot of work. Every day I tend to work from 8 in the morning till 1 in the morning, 7 days a week.
What, if any, techniques or things that you do, if you have any, helps you be efficient, be optimized, and sane in doing this? Because I know people will have the systems that they love. I know other people who just say, no, I don't have anything. I just work all day. Is there anything important to you, like habits, systems, rituals, things that you do on a daily basis, or is it mainly just...
I basically run off guilt.
Interesting.
When I first invented this stuff, my wife and I were retired living on the beach in Montenegro, small Mediterranean country. Our rent was $350 a month for a fully furnished luxury apartment.
That's crazy.
It's easy to be retired.
Sure, yeah.
And when I first invented this stuff, I was on the beach, like kind of really fleshed it out. And I was like, wow, that could be game changing. And the first thing, I got scared. Also like, wait, you're like retired in your early 30s. Most people would kill for that. Why would you want to jeopardize that? And then also, you're talking about disrupting the biggest companies in the world. Seems kind of dangerous and foolish. And I was like, screw that. I don't want to do any of that. And then 100 days later, I just felt so guilty that I had to start working on the project. And so at first, the goal was to give away the idea. So I did the stupid thing. I was like emailing the Bill Gates Foundation, Elon Musk's of the world, which they never opened the emails. But even if they did, it was like, my emails are like chicken scratch usually because I'm not the greatest at reading and writing. And they're probably like, who the fuck is this guy saying that they're going to do free supermarkets? And so when I couldn't give away the idea, then I had to work on it. And then I think that what people don't realize when starting a startup is it's like really romantic in the beginning when you like just thinking about the potential. If you solve something epic, and then you kind of hit rock bottom once you start trying to move forward and you get 1 million no's. And then when you feel like it couldn't get any lower, you go like into the deepest, darkest depths of hell. And then if you're lucky, you don't give up. And then there's like a second romantic phase, which we're at right now, because you're starting to see success, but you manage your expectations differently. Like you're like a salty veteran, like 1,000-yard stare. Like you don't ride the daily ups and downs of the startup thing because so many times, like, hey, I want to invest 10, 20 million multiple times a day. Don't hear back from those people, or you just can't do it anymore. And so most startups never get out of the deepest, darkest depths of the sewer. And for me, what kept me not quitting, especially during the pandemic, was just guilt. It was like, if I stop working on this, is anyone else going to continue anything like this? Has anybody created any way to solve global famine profitably? Because the UN has their like sustainability goals, and they all agreed, okay, we're going to try to reach this by a certain year. They're never going to do it because no one wants to finance it because their methods are unprofitable, especially when you spend 10 grand on a hammer. And so knowing that maybe I was the only person who had created ways to do it, and I feel like a common sense manner, it's a lot of guilt. I mean, we're going to save 50 million lives a year within this decade. And how would you feel if like, you're just like, oh, I'm going to quit?
That's a hell of a motivator.
And so I run off of guilt. Like every day I wake up, I feel guilty. And so I'm just trying to get the project to a point where I hopefully don't feel guilty anymore.
Guilt's one way to put it. I think of it as it would be a responsibility. And you can, I believe, get a lot of meaning out of responsibility. And when you were saying that, what comes to mind is Atlas Shrugged and that statue of holding the world on your shoulders and that responsibility. And when you were talking about the UN and all these grand schemes for solving world hunger, solving all of these things, like the question that a lot of people ask is, okay, where's the money going to go if we give it to you, or where has it gone?
Exactly.
And when you're talking about incentives, which I like when all parties, it makes sense for them, and the end user, and user is not even a good word, the world benefits when everybody follows their own incentive, which is what I love about what FreeWater's doing.
We had to create a new system that wasn't zero-sum game. Have you heard in capitalism it's a zero-sum game? Like there's one winner, many losers.
In certain games. Not all games, but
sharing economy is very similar. And so, like I'll give you an iPhone example. iPhone 15 or whatever comes out. If you and I go buy it right away, we pay the highest possible price that Apple will sell it for. It's a brand new phone. If you wait 11 months right before the next one drops, you'll pay the absolute cheapest price. If you get it for the cheapest price, Apple's not as happy as if you paid it, $100 over the typical markup. one winner, kind of one loser, or one more a happier party than the other. With this, it's a little bit different. It's a new economic model. So consumers happy, they get free quality products, not in plastic. Advertiser gets their targeted audience. We donate to charity. Manufacturer gets the same amount of money, whether our product's free or it's resold. We get our money.
Mm-hmm. And so this opens up the whole can of worms good worm, whatever the good version of opening a can of worms is, as to what else you can make free besides water. And you touched upon that a little bit earlier. What are the kinds of things that can be made free? I'm sure you can apply this model hypothetically to a lot of things, but tangibly, something that works. That would.
Number one, there's not just one way to make things free. I've created more than 25. And if I just sat there and that's all I did, you could probably think of thousands. And so I hate ads. We use ads to bootstrap this. We've created ways to do this profitably in the future with no ads. The reason why we are going to be able to do that is we're going to be making so much money off free electricity. Same principle applies. Why wouldn't we give everyone all their other groceries and products for free? And so think about it like this. Uber is an app, most successful app of all time, arguably. But Uber wouldn't be anywhere if there wasn't the App Store, because that's where you find it. But Uber as an app couldn't exist without 3G at that time because you needed GPS. So there needed to be an infrastructure of 3G to launch it. But then if you go past the App Store, well, the App Store wouldn't exist if there wasn't an iPhone. Apple created an amazing product which warrants the ability to put an App Store there. Then your phone wouldn't work if it didn't have Wi-Fi. It wouldn't work if there was obviously no electricity. So as you go deeper and deeper down the supply chain, eventually you find yourself as the energy producer or the resource producer. And so you can make things free from any one of those pivot points, from the app to the App Store, from the hardware, from the raw material producer. The deeper you go down that supply chain, the more wealth opportunities there are, and then you could start pivoting away from the ad model. So right now we're at the weakest point of the supply chain. We're all the way at the end, towards the end of the App Store, the Uber end of it. But piece by piece, we will inch towards the raw part of the supply chain. So what can you make free? Well, in the ad-supported model, FreeWater falls under one category called BVRE, below the value of the real estate. That's any product you transform the real estate into ads or communication, because we have a lot of non-advertising use cases. That covers the cost to manufacture the product, to distribute it, our donation to charity, sales team's commission, and our profit. And while it seems like it's a lot, it works for water, soda, beer, legal marijuana, fruits, vegetables, household cleaning items, toiletries, like Windex, any of that stuff, generic pharmaceuticals, Advil, Tylenol, cough syrup. Clothing, if you want your clothes covered in ads, I personally don't. But not just cheapy items, because it works for every type of transportation almost, the free taxi model. And then also buildings. So I'll give you an example. And then we'll move into the other type of free products. But we pre-ordered 25 Tesla self-driving Cybertrucks. We reserved them at the 7,000 to 10,000 range, knowing Elon will be famously late as always. So right now the self-driving software package is at 15 grand, I believe. So we're already up 120 grand in equity. One day these cars will come out. We're 1 millionth person in line. So we'll get them when they come, and the software will be worth much more at that point. But if you wanted to advertise on like a taxi van in Austin, it's 2 to 4 grand a month. So we are going to sell the ad space on that vehicle for 2 grand a month. The payment on the Cybertruck will cost us $1 grand, everything, insurance, charging, cleaning, everything. So at 2 grand a month income just on that, we're profitable $1 grand every month. So see how our truck won't just be free, it's paying us to use it. Today we just make money off the physical packaging. Next step is we'll charge 3% for all products sold. That will also work on our truck. So the truck drives by, you scan that QR code, you buy an iPad. We also get an additional 3% off of that. One day, I believe Elon will hit the button, the vehicles will drive themselves. When those trucks are not autonomously delivering free groceries for us, they're going to be robo-taxis. So our free trucks will pay us to use them. So yeah, it works for water, cheaper items, but also works for big ticket items too. Then you have everything else, like your watch right there. You can't make it free by putting a little Nike sign on the band, or your jacket with no ads on it, or your Uber, or trip to Hawaii, or a puppy, or whatever. Anything that doesn't fall into this category, we call the AVRE category, which we're about to launch the initial features of that. And so that's a digital marketing play. And so YouTube charges 40 cents a minute to advertise on their platform. That's the standard rate, 40 cents a minute. We will charge 40 cents a minute when we launch it eventually, but we'll pay our audience 37 of those cents, meaning you now get paid $22 an hour to watch ads and to train our algorithms. And so at $22 an hour, it might not be enough for a lot of people, but for the most Americans don't make 15 bucks an hour. And so you could literally be living on the beach in Costa Rica making 22 bucks an hour. But so for older folks who like something physical, imagine a Visa card in your wallet. You're charging at 22 bucks an hour. Or for people who want it, a digital wallet, it's like an Apple Pay-like app. So let's say if it was for you, and now you've got $2,000 there. You go swipe it at Whole Foods, swipe it at the Apple Store, swipe it wherever you want, swipe, swipe, swipe. Eventually you get to zero. You swipe again, you go negative, that's okay. But by the end of the month, you got to get that balance back to zero, or we're going to charge you the difference. And so today when you buy something at the Apple Store, Whole Foods, your ATM, your debit card provider, your credit card provider, and Apple are the only people who know about that purchase. But with our aggravator, we'll own all that data. And so free products create new types of data points we call honest data and beyond honest data, and it's only possible when things are free. And so it completely changes the way that people shop, because now with the BVRE platform and the future AVRE platform, that means every product that's currently sold at Walmart, Target, Costco is now available. And so what can't be free, a Tesla Model S can be, a Tesla Roadster can't be, because it ultimately will be what you can finance with a 40, 45K a year salary. In some states, that's a house. In other states, not a house. Depends on...
Yeah. What are the factors that determines the amount that an advertiser is spending on this? Like, I'm trying to think, what are the factors that would drive that down? Because the amount that you're getting, for the amount of money that the advertisers are spending per
it's only going to go up.
How so?
Because when you receive something free, you're psychologically indebted to somebody for life. And so imagine, let's say 5-10 years from now, you're sitting down with your family and everything on the dinner table's free. The entree, the beverages, and you're going to look around and be like, who's responsible for this? And you look on the thing and you're like, Adidas. Wow, I love Adidas. Next time you go buy your kids a pair of shoes, are you going to buy them a pair of Nikes or Vans? No. And so it's different. When you actually give someone that sort of value, they want to help you. And so these are higher quality impressions. And in the future, everything's going to be individualized just for your household. And so far more targeted than Facebook or Google can ever be, or TikTok, but beneficial psychologically and helping you. And so when all those things are free, your transportation, your food, your computer, your whatever, let's say the average American household might be saving 25 grand a year. That's a lot of cash in your pocket. Where are you going to spend it? I'm hoping that maybe you choose to spend that on our future platforms, but just put it in your pocket for all I care.
Interesting. So everything's going to be tied to a certain ad, a certain brand, a certain company, somebody effectively subsidizing it, if not paying for it. And then that association increases the quality of the impression.
Yeah, but I guess like it's just really flexible. So that's why I'm saying there's not one way of doing this. Pick an industry, any industry in the whole world, other than a Lamborghini maker. But
mining.
Kind of mining.
Gold mining.
I mean, that's a weird one, but...
energy creation.
No, let's just stick with the gold mining. Like, what's the final product? Jewelry or something, right? And so you want to buy a bar of silver or you want to buy your wife a wedding ring at $22 an hour, that's a way to pay that off. But that's like an obscure one. So you already told me before you like to work out. So like free gym. One way to make gyms easily free in the future is your membership at 24 Hour Fitness or whatever is like $70 a month. I would say at $22 an hour, bam. But like, what's a gym full of? People creating energy, but most of them don't use it. I used to own a gym. Very few gyms out there have their treadmills producing electricity and charging up the gym. Smart ones would have totally solar. Every one of those treadmills, ellipticals, bicycles, you name it, would be producing their own power. This technology has existed for more than a decade, so now you have no overhead.
Is that enough energy generated?
Yeah, but then you subsidize other things. What's also in a gym? Supplements, selling, supplements, personal training. So you got to use your real estate in ways where you just keep subsidizing, lowering. But then you could add that digital advertising player on top of it. And so that's why I pivoted from free taxi, free flights, free electricity, because my way to accomplish that was that app where you're getting compensated with your time. And I realized, wait a minute, the same way you make a car free, you can make anything free or negatively priced.
Yeah. For energy, as you go down to the raw materials side of the supply chain, how would that work? Because I understand the consumer side. I buy something, it has ads on it. That makes sense.
So here's the counterintuitive thing. I guess I have a question for you. Do you consider humanity to be efficient? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Well, it depends what you mean by efficient.
Anything. Like, do you think your jacket maker is efficient?
No. If you know more about this than I, but if you just look at the supply chain, where things travel across the world just to get back to the same spot, it's
So the peak
inefficient.
efficiency of American manufacturing in the history of any company was 15% only, and that was in 1995. And since 1995, aggregate efficiencies only dropped for many reasons, including aging infrastructure and globalization. So the most high-tech and efficient companies out there, like the Teslas of the world, have 90% plus loss in efficiency of everything they do.
And can you quickly explain to people who don't know what aggregate efficiency is and what that actually measures?
If you and I were lions and we were chasing an antelope, aggregate efficiency would measure the raw material to finish all the energy in between. So let's say we catch a zebra, but we failed 20 times. So you got to calculate all that calorie loss, all the loss, right? And then you don't eat it all, right? You leave a lot of it there. And so it measures everything from the energy used, produced, what's discarded, what's lost in the conversion of things. And so when you examine today's supply chain, it's just done so poorly. And so the beauty is free products enable new ways to manufacture and distribute that quadruple today's efficiency levels. And so there's many ways to pull it off. So it's a combination of these new ways of being efficient plus these new revenue streams that people aren't using because of social norms or they just didn't learn about it in their MBA program, and then combining those together.
Gotcha. So help me understand a little bit more what making things free would do to the supply chain. So for example,
so
like the notebook.
Why do trash people pick up in your neighborhood or in your parents' neighborhood, whoever's neighborhood? Why do they go house after house after house consecutively to pick up the trash? It's efficient.
Right.
But why doesn't Amazon deliver like that? Notice how Amazon will drop a package off on your doorstep and then the driver will drive a few miles over there, drop it off on their doorstep. In their wildest dreams, they couldn't distribute to 3 consecutive homes because their products cost money. But free products, you could deliver to thousands of consecutive homes, especially certain products like water or potatoes or rice or flour or cookies or that everybody consumes, bananas or whatever it is. And so the trash people don't pick up the trash like Amazon. They don't do your house and then drive 5 miles over here to that house. And so Amazon built their juggernaut infrastructure and Target, Walmart, everybody, McDonald's around a world where things cost money. But when things are free, there's new opportunities to deliver in consecutive ways. So now you have to create a distributed, decentralized infrastructure, which Amazon and nobody has. And so in the future, we'll be delivering initially free water to thousands of consecutive homes. That's pretty efficient. You do 10, 15 houses, you run out of product, you go a couple miles away to the micro fulfillment center, you fill up the truck, you go right where you left off. But then once you have the water going to your house, then you add every other grocery and product. And so then people who sell products, you're like, holy shit, like they could get the product to the consumer, like UPS or Amazon or Walmart or anyone else, for a fraction of the energy and time and money that we can. We'll pay you to deliver too. And so Amazon Prime isn't free, right? It's 100 or whatever it is a year. It's not free. And so there's just these new opportunities and efficiency. So like, if you look at like Coca-Cola's supply chain, for example, just a bottle of water. Well, the raw materials, what? Oil. So that oil was drilled in Saudi Arabia, put on an oil tanker, shipped to China, the largest producer of plastic pellets. So they send it on the oil tanker, it gets to China, they smelt it in these plastic pellets, and they ship it to, let's say, Coca-Cola's main bottling place in Georgia. So that second leg, then they smelt it into these bottles. Then they fill it with Coke or water or whatever, and then it goes to another location. It sits in a giant warehouse. Those products aren't free, so they wait for enough people to buy it on your local supermarket shelf for the SKU to get scanned, and like, okay, now we got to deliver it to that store. Then you deliver it to that store, you buy that bottle of water, you drink it. Even if you throw it in the blue bin, only 9% of it will be recycled, because only 9% of plastic could be recycled. And so, even if you throw it in the blue bin. And so, but look at all that mileage from Saudi Arabia to China, China to here.
That's crazy.
And so the future is making the packaging at location A, distributing for free at or next to location A, and discarding it back into raw materials at location A. So notice how there's no A, B, C, D, E, F, G traveling 10,000 fucking miles.
Right.
It's just everything's done at location A. So with FreeWater, when we break ground here one day in Austin, we won't have one mega FreeWater factory. We'll actually have 23 micro factories. And each micro factory will manufacture 250 million of these a year. And you supply that local community.
Wow.
Once we have the free water going to your house, then you have the free beer, the free boom, 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 boom.
So what's next? Is it going to be the micro factories? Are you going to move on to new products eventually? What does the future look like for this model?
We could potentially launch free beer and free tampons this year if we get to it. Free vending machines are going to be really important. So this first free vending machine solves the first main issue on everybody's mind: security. When somebody hears free supermarket or free vending machine, like, I'm going to steal all the chocolate bars from your vending machine.
Right.
But you can't do that with this vending machine, because you'll access it with the mobile app, and that'll limit it to 1 to 3 free waters or free snacks per person per day. But then with that machine, we will raise our first VC round, and then we'll create a new type of machine we call the all-in-one, meaning see how this bottle has a wraparound label. It was applied by an applicator. So on that first version of that second machine, it'll be for cylindrical shaped containers. You have the label printer, the label applicator, and bidding algorithms. So advertisers could bid on that in real time. So you and I walk up to the machine in downtown Austin or Times Square, New York City, you and I scan it, and in real time we get individualized artwork, individualized QR codes, individualized augmented reality on every single bottle. And that's going to enable us to charge Google AdWords type revenue on top of our normal prices. Most expensive Google AdWords are $1,500 a click, not an execution. And so that same technology will then be outfitted to last mile delivery trucks. And so that will enable us to deliver individualized 24 packs directly to your house. So you open that 24 pack, every single one of them is individualized just for your family, house after house after house after house. That same technology then gets applied to every type of packaging out there. No one in the world has anything even practically as sophisticated, not Amazon, Nestle, Hershey's. I believe once we accomplish vending machine version 2, we'll be a multi-billion-dollar company just based off that tech. And then
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I didn't understand that element of individualizing it and curating it. I thought it was at first just generic.
It's a combination of ad revenue, software revenue, all types of new revenue streams that are not associated with these old school 100,000+ industries. And then the increased levels of efficiency by manufacturing and distributing in ways that are only possible for products free or negatively priced. And so it's that combination of the savings and the revenue that's where the magic is, right?
Yeah.
And so even the algorithms we're going to use are going to be 100x minimum Facebook or Google or TikTok's algorithms, because they don't ask the right questions and they all copy one another.
Wow. So you mentioned VC funding. What is that part of your next big challenges that you're tackling now as a company? What are those next big milestones like, if you can disclose them?
Yeah, everything we do is open source. So nothing off the table. So basically, yeah, it's that first vending machine. Show the world that it's possible. A lot of people already want to pre-order them, but I really don't want to build that many of that first one. That's not next level technology. And so to raise that money to get into that next level technology for the vending machine, all-in-one vending machines, and to outfit those last mile delivery trucks. And then kind of go from there. It's a software and hardware race. And so like Uber was the fastest company to scale around the world. Why? Because they just switched the language of their app from English to German to Portuguese. So anybody could print a Nike sign, throw it on a can of beer, call it a free beer. But it's the new ways to manufacture, produce it, the software, the tech, that's the magic. That's what's scalable. And these new opportunities to build new types of app stores, which can be applied differently. That's the magic.
So tell me a little bit about that as being a platform for free things. Because you were mentioning that with the App Store, how things are built on certain...
So when you create a next level piece of hardware that people can't live without, now you can build application stores. They first did that with home computers. Same thing with this. What's your iPhone or Samsung or whatever? It's hardware you can't live without, most people. Since you can't live without it, and they've got the monopoly on the hardware, now there's the App Store. And they charge 30 cents out of every dollar that you earn in the App Store. But it's not a flexible App Store, because Apple's App Store can only live in Apple phones and Google's in Google phones. But we're creating a new type of App Store, initially QR code based, then we'll get rid of the QR codes in general, that lives on non-electronic surfaces, whether it's a wall or a beverage or a bag of chips. And so people that have apps in our App Store, yeah, we'll charge 30 cents on every dollar, but it'll be more flexible than that, because if you're a beer maker in New Zealand, you're going to put our QR codes on your products because they're going to drive more revenue, and we're going to split that revenue with you as well. So there's greater levels of flexibility.
Yeah.
And as everything goes to wearables, then the augmented reality will pop automatically.
Interesting. So the platform would be something like the labeling system that also plugs into your network with the advertisers?
It'll be multi-tiered. So the first level of platform will be an Amazon-like competitor. When you sell something on Amazon, you know they take 10 to 15% commission of the total revenue. With us, it'll be 3%. So we'll undercut them tremendously. That'll be our second revenue stream for FreeWater. We'll charge 3% to the brands who are selling. Then we'll build this new type of app store. It'll be really flexible. And so people will create, again, you can only do that when you have hardware you can't live without. What's water, food, and medicine? You can't live without that, right? And so, but then other APIs that you could allow people to plug in, APIs like a URL. So ways that you could simply allow other people to utilize your platform and take advantage of it without being one of your products.
Who else is looking into this?
Nobody. Just people copying us, but
yeah,
it's so different.
I feel like
people don't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take your little book.
Sure.
So I'm gonna write right here.
Do whatever you want.
So
So for people just listening, it's a number line.
Just like you saw in
With
school a long time ago.
-10 and +10.
Yeah, and 0 in the middle.
And 0 in the middle.
So here's capitalism, right? Like I sell something for $8. Here's the sharing economy. That's Uber. Maybe I take a ride for $3 or $50, whatever it is, right? Then you have 0. We call this the free economy. And then anything on this side of 0, you earn a profit while distributing negatively priced products or services. We named that the giving economy. And so it's existed, just people didn't identify it. And so on the right side of 0, there's a playbook. It's like you can't go off of the playbook. There's only so many things, like magic tricks you could pull out of your hat or out of your sleeve. But eventually you exhaust all of that. And then when you get to 0, all of a sudden you start getting new options. And some of those options apply in that negative zone. But then in the negative zone, there are new things that you can do that you can't do in 0 and you can't do on the right side of 0. And so socialism, capitalism, the sharing economy, the free economy at flat 0, we call this the giving economy, which means you earn a profit while distributing negatively priced products or services, probably advertising or data supported. And then the next one where we're going to take it, I call it everybody's economy. The same thing, but with no ads and data, because I fucking hate ads and data. And so Amazon, Walmart, Target, that's capitalism. They're way over here. Spotify is the sharing economy. They're over here. If mechanically speaking, if Spotify and Amazon started today, had the same, capable founders, same money to spend, Amazon couldn't win because Spotify has more mechanical advantages. It's the difference between Uber and the taxi companies, different economies. But if you could choose between the free Uber or the one that costs money, if the quality is the same, I'm going to go with free Uber. And if I could choose between the free Uber or the one that pays you to take a ride, that's what I'm going to go with, right? And so there's this new rules and new opportunities. And so there's companies that are technically negatively priced, but they're such asshole companies that the world doesn't perceive them to be negatively priced, like Facebook. Facebook is technically negatively priced. It's free, but they donate less than 1%, a fraction of a percent of their money to charity every year. So on paper, mathematically speaking, Facebook is negatively priced. If you ask any American, is Facebook free? A lot of them will say no. You're sacrificing a lot. You're this, you're that. It's not perceived to be a giving economy company. So once you turn the needle a certain amount, the perception changes, but also the rule book. It's almost like a new type of physics that you can apply to your business model that you can't do with the Uber of something or the Amazon of something or the Coca-Cola of something. So they can't physically win without abandoning what they do and copying.
Yeah, so a couple things.
Yeah, sorry, throwing too much shit at you.
No, you're good. One thing is, I think it's still capitalism, because it's capitalism and communism is about who controls the means of production.
It's not communism because someone's paying for it. But there's one thing that socialism and capitalism and the sharing economy, two things that they all have in common. They all live on that side of 0, and they all have extremely low levels of aggregate efficiency. But it's a completely different mindset when you start a giving economy company. Let's say you want to make a free Frisbee company, right? If you're going to make a Frisbee company, the way you would do it, you'd say, okay, I create a name, create a logo. I find my Frisbee manufacturer, US, China, wherever. It's going to cost me this much. I'm going to sell it for that much. And eventually I could buy more, get my cost down. Same thing, right? Maybe I open a competing Frisbee company and we, keep trying to compete to have better value props, whatever. But if you want to start a negatively priced Frisbee company, free Frisbees that pay you to play with them or free Frisbees that donate to charity, you have to start the game completely differently. You're going to be like, how the fuck am I going to create a negatively priced Frisbee? A free Frisbee that pays you to play with it, or every Frisbee donates $1 or whatever to charity. I have to do this completely differently. I have to examine the supply chain. I have to examine the raw materials. I have to examine every little piece and throw out all the bullshit.
Yeah.
And then eventually you've thrown out all of the crap and you're like, okay, now we're really lean, we're just not profitable. So how can I bring in this revenue stream to go negatively priced on this frisbee? Maybe it's the advertising model. That's the Captain Obvious one. Okay, I'll put some ads on the frisbee. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not. Maybe the physical's not enough. So you're like, okay, I'll digital video player it. And now I have a negatively priced frisbee. But it's the way that you design your business model and go about it. Because the only way to live on this side of zero is a pure efficiency play.
Yeah.
And the only way to, you don't have to be efficient on that side of zero.
Well, so I'm going to mention something that you said that was interesting, but I'm going to preface it by stating that, economics is about the allocation of scarce resources and how you do that.
But this is different because scarcity is changing with automation. And so to go from a world of scarcity to go to a world of abundance, and that's where we're heading.
But so the interesting thing that you said, which is an economic problem, is when you decrease prices, supply will tend to increase, and you made the point that you limit the amount of supply per person, say in the free vending machines.
Well, that's initially, but people, consumers, they want three things. And if you could accomplish all three things as a company, you have a legal monopoly. But you could be very successful if you just do one or two of those things. Those three things is highest quality product or service, best possible price, highest level customer service. Quality, price, service. And so when it comes to quality, we already offer as good of water of Evian or Fiji or anyone else. When it comes to price, we're negatively priced. It's currently 110% off every water. It's only going more negative. Service is our future app and platform. Get rid of the people. So quality, price, service. And so that's all consumers want. Like pizza, cars, whatever, they're going to measure those three things. And so you're right, scarcity is where we are right now, supply and demand. But scarcity almost encourages waste in many ways. And lack. Look at the clothing companies. When they can't sell their product at their department store, then they put it at Ross or one of those stores, and they can't sell it there. They send them to a dump in the middle of another country. They don't even donate it to charity. And so car companies do the same thing. They'll throw away the cars. They're extremely wasteful. And
so, because hypothetically they could just give those away.
They could, but it goes against MBA 101. And
Maybe,
so
what would you do to fix that?
Well, the phenomenon is Amazon, Walmart, Target, whomever, they built the wrong infrastructures for this new world. And so they have to change what they're doing in order to compete. When I first invented this stuff and didn't want to do it, and finally I was like, fuck, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I have to have multiple ways to win. In the past in business, I had one way to win, that was make money. But this is like a save the world sort of project. So I said, okay, way number one, I get my investment back. I don't lose any money. Way number two, consolation prize, we make such a compelling case that the world's largest companies squash us like a bug and put us out of business by opening a better free supermarket that donates more money to charity than us. If Amazon puts us out of business that way, we still save 50 million lives a year and cut USA food waste by 30%. Because 30% of all groceries go straight from the supermarket shelf and into the trash can at the supermarket because they're too expensive and they expire before they can be sold. And so, we're going to get way number one just because we have too many moats and too large of a lead. And so Ethan, 3D printer, master of the universe. Well, I respect Ethan. It's leapfrog technology, but they're taking everything in the factory and making it one machine. Instead of having hundreds of machines, you could have one machine that does it all. But we're taking everything out of the factory and doing it from one location. And so it's similar principle, Also, he's all-in-one printing machine. We're creating all-in-one technology on vending and then distribution later. And so it's similar principle. Take a bunch of stuff and make it one thing, whether it's on the distribution side or the manufacturing side.
Wow. Well, all this has just been phenomenal to hear firsthand and see how things, first of all, have been done and what you have going on the horizon. If anybody else is listening like me, there's way more under this than I initially anticipated,
Totally.
which is the most exciting thing to learn. But my next real final question is, do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs, maybe advice to your previous self a while back, or just something you wish you would have known?
Yeah, I mean, number one, there's a difference between a small business and a startup. Most people don't understand. And on Shark Tank, they always call themselves startups. Those are all small businesses. They're not startups designed to scale globally. So if you attempt to do a startup, it's already 1,000 or 10,000 times more difficult than a small business. If the problem you're trying to solve doesn't bother you to the end of time, you're not going to solve it. You just won't have the gas in your tank to get through the deepest, darkest depths of hell, and you will get there when you hear 1 million no's, or when there's a pandemic, or they say money dries up, or just bad times come. Number two, I always tell all the entrepreneurs I meet in Austin, just get the fuck out of America. Go live.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Go live on the beach in Thailand, Indonesia, Eastern Europe, Latin America, whatever interests you. Have $200 a month rent. Travel the world. Have amazing experiences. And from all of those experiences, excitement, just learning because you're not here in America, maybe you'll figure out something great. But you have infinite runway with like $200 a month rent versus Austin.
Yeah.
It's not $200 a month rent.
What's your perspective on balancing? Because I get the appeal of, first of all, not dying, giving yourself runway to run all these experiments, to get those no's. But the other side of that is the network. What are your thoughts on that of being
You're going to build
your
your own network. We have a network of almost 1 million people now through our social media. And so if we weren't physically manufacturing goods, I would not be living in this country, period. Wow. There's not one thing that we would get out of it. And I wasted a ton of money living in Silicon Valley, working, trying to meet the who's who of VCs, this or that. No. And I love VCs, but there's a reason why they're the VC and not the founder. They're just not as smart. And so their playbooks are dated. You're just burning through money for no reason. And so if you create something truly spectacular, not just, most startups create something just incrementally better. But if you create something that's 100x better, or 1,000x better, or 10,000x better, seriously better, it's going to take time. You're going to have to develop things. You're going to have to solve problems that no one else thought were possible. That requires runway and a stress-free environment where you're not just like, holy fuck, I've got 6 months or I'm running out of money. It took me years to develop these things.
Yeah, so how many years has it been total so far?
So again, I started from zero. I didn't know how to type. So I'm hoping that a lot of these people, if they're listening, they know how to type at least.
Yeah.
Like when I graduated high school in 2003, you didn't need to know how to use a computer. I hand wrote everything. I owned a gym that wasn't very technical. And so I had to teach myself how to type. I'm bad at reading because I have dyslexia. I had no experience in manufacturing, marketing, or inventing industries. So I had a lot of ground to cover. And so it was 2 years of just inventing because I worked on Free Taxi for 11 months, then pivoted. So 2 years of pure inventing. Then came back to America, another 6 months were necessary. But in Silicon Valley, like I got ripped off many times. And when you get ripped off in America, as a founder, that's like a $5,000 hit, a $10,000 hit.
True.
You mess up in a cheap place, you're out $300.
Well said.
And so it's
So make it meaningful, and then give yourself long enough runway to experiment. And
because the main differentiation factor is just who wants it more and who's gonna never give up. because people can easily say, oh, I thought of your idea before, or this or that, but it's the unique process and trial and error when you actually bring it to product and go and solve all of those things. Like, that's where the magic is in. It's fucking hard. And like, again, everybody always says it's not possible for me or anything hard. Then when you do it, like now that we're pretty successful out, there's hundreds of copycats around the world, which is amazing. Like, who cares? What are you going to beat us at opening the best free supermarkets in the world? Mm-hmm. But it takes time. Like, back in the day, people said it was impossible to climb Mount Everest. Now Wim Hof did it barefoot in his underwear.
Right.
And 4 minute mile was impossible. Then after that first person did the first 4 minute mile, I think like 20 people did it in the next 24 months. And so to do something that's really next level and to have moats to protect you from the biggest industries out there, like many moats, not just one. Most founders I meet don't even have one moat because it's incrementally better. You need runway.
Well said. I couldn't ask for a better podcast. This was amazing. This was inspiring. And I know a lot of people will take this story to heart. So where can people find you and learn more about FreeWater?
Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, reach out anywhere. Hopefully TikTok doesn't get banned soon.
Yeah, hopefully
if it does, follow us on YouTube.
There you go.
And Insta. And if I could ever add any value in any way, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. This was wonderful having you.
Yeah.